I'll start again.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to another one here. I have a Cutco interview lined up here for today with none other than Mr. Michael Hammack himself, the North Carolina All-Star, now Texan, good old country Texan boy down in Austin,
Yeehaw.
Texas. Yeah, exactly. And got a good interview set up for you guys here for today, and very excited for his time. So before we get started, Michael, I don't think a lot of people maybe know who you are exactly because you come from the Eastern region originally, and now you're part of Southwest, primarily in Texas. And so for you guys who may or may not know the Michael Hammock story, Michael sold Cutco for a while and then he left the business for a while. And he just came back to the business in about late September, early October timeframe. And he has just been nothing but hitting the ground running ever since then. So just real quick here, Michael, on your stats, and correct me if I'm wrong on this. You're over 700 grand in career sales, like true career sales at this point, about 725. You've sold $126,000 in the last 5 months since you've been back in Cutco starting from ground zero. Is that right?
Correct.
Nice. And then of that 126,000 bucks, you have about 35,000 bucks in service calls from events, like not even your past customers, just 35K
Correct.
from the service calls at the shows. That's pretty wild. This is actually a really good time because you just had your best week ever, which was $24,000. Is that right?
That's right.
Talk about like the most perfect time to have this interview is right after you just have your best week. So
That's
it's
right.
it's nothing but rising tides for the Michael Hammock career right now. So that's pretty cool to see. So I
Yeah.
got a list of questions here for you today. I hope you're ready for them. And for you guys that are listening, make sure to go ahead and bust out your notes and take some good stuff here as we go here. So let's go and get right into it. First thing here, obviously, you just mentioned that you came back to Cutco not that long ago. When you leave Cutco and you come back to the business, you just kind of have to pick up where you left off. What are some of the things that you started doing right away to one, just start working, and then two, to have like great averages since coming back? Like, what are some things that you did right away when you came back to the business?
Yeah, so I listened to a lot of Cutco audios. The vector library is super valuable and had some resources and things that just I consumed continuously. I was coming from a place where I really wanted to make sure that I sold successfully. And so I was not leaving like any stone unturned. And so when you internalize so much of that and you start practicing it, it makes it easier to execute on the moments. And then I think obviously the other part of that is maximizing every opportunity that I've been given. Um, I my first market days, my first event when I came back, was good. I sold an upgrade, sold like 2,900 bucks. Got two service calls. One of those service calls, I ended up selling another 1,000, 1,500 bucks. Um, and then, fast forward, a lot of my events have been just maximizing the whole process, doing in the event and really trying to extract as many service calls as I can out of the event, closing while I go, and then direct scheduling those service calls after the event to try and get as much CPO out of it as possible.
Good. And I think that's something that it sounds so simple, but it's just the reality of the business, which is be in front of customers and just keep doing it week over week. And then just keep working on your skill set if I'm kind of hearing that right. Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, and by the way, like that's for you guys that don't know too, like this is something that's been Michael's bread and butter since being here is just working a lot of events, doing a lot of appointments from these events, and really just building out his customer base over in the Texas area and just keep working on the skill set and make sure when he is in front of someone, he is maximizing what he can get. So I got another question for you. Um, I'm sure this is kind of like like kind of in a wide array of different answers we could get here. But just in general, what are the things that you feel like you're personally really strong at when you're behind the booth? When you're working with a customer or you're at a show or whatever it is, what are some things that you just feel very strongly that you're like, I'm comfortable with these things? What would those things be?
I feel really confident in upgrading past clients, and I feel really confident in selling sets and not settling for smaller packages when the client really does want to have like a galley or a homemaker. They just need to see why. And I'm confident too in packages, sets and flatware are something I feel very good about. Getting more confident with cookware and yeah, And then obviously I feel really confident booking service calls.
I would hope so. I mean, if you sell 35K through service calls from events and you're like, no, I feel weird about those. I'm like, man, I can't wait till you feel comfortable with those.
Yeah.
I know you've mentioned things in the past about like just enjoying like having good energy behind the booth and stuff like that. Because we all have scripts and we all know like the fundamentals of, like this is step by step how I sell a homemaker or sell a set to someone at a show. But how important is it about like having energy or any of that kind of stuff beyond just the words you say? Like, does that make sense? Like what I'm asking?
Yeah. So I think it's a lot of times um, the energy that you bring to it. Like I really enjoy being behind the booth, and I think that makes a big difference in terms of what the way that you show up. So it's not just reading the scripts; it's bringing the energy of enjoying the process and being, um, yeah, being present to it. I think when you have the scripts memorized and you also have the enjoyment of being there, magic happens.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, Michael, let me ask you this. If there was So you've sold some package deals lately, is what it sounds like. So what if I'm like a rep behind the booth and I'm like selling to a customer, what are some, do you have any like one-liners or any type of things that you say or do or anything you can think of? Like when a customer buys a knife set from you, I know you said something about you're really good lately at selling signature sets, and then you're really good at bundling them with flatwares. Like what are
Mhm.
some one-liners you can think of on the top of your head to be like, yeah, when someone decides to buy a knife set from me, this is how I get them from point A to point B. Like, what is that?
Yeah, it's very simple. So I'll just do something where share when they bought the set, they're excited, asking them what they would look at next. Just kind of framing. It's really not uncommon for people to bundle multiple packages together. So getting knives with flatware, knives with cookware, or even all three, which is our deal of the day. And so if they've showed interest in something, I'll kind of just ask permission to just tell them shortly about it. If they haven't showed interest in anything, I would ask them, consider before mentioning that, I would ask them what they would could be considering next. Make it seem like it's a down the road thing, and then framing that it's not uncommon and just giving an excuse to pitch them on it. And then even if they say no, I still will process the order and kind of sell them on it either way because I want clients to start coming up down the road and being like, hey, we're ready for it. So I want them to walk away thinking, damn, I do want that. And I've even since doing that, I've sold since closing. You close the order. I've kind of accepted that it's not going to happen. I'm just selling for down the road, and then they end up buying it there. So it's just people have a lot of defenses up, I think.
Sure. I mean, that makes sense. So you kind of mentioned a line in there that I feel like I wanted to highlight a little bit for everybody because it sounds like a really good line. I just want to make sure we're not like downplaying it at all. So let's say that you have someone that, they buy a knife set from you and you're trying to get them again from point A to point B on adding the flatware, for example. And there's some people that are like, sure, tell me about the flatware. And then there's some people that are like, no, 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 don't even tell me about that. And you said something really interesting about, you said, quote, it's not uncommon for people to bundle. And then kind of take me through that. Like what does that mean? How do you say it? Is it like how you say it? Is it what you say? Is it a little bit of both? What does it
I
sound
think it's a little bit of both. I think you're just kind of you're helping them understand that like this $2,000 order is not a big deal, right? That it's not uncommon that people spend 10, $20,000 here at the Cutco booth. Um, and so just making them feel like, hey, this is a reasonable purchase. Just that's the goal of the statement, I guess you could say. And even when they say no, you kind of just play with them a little bit. Be like, well, it's a pretty amazing deal, right? Or, I mean, is it really that crazy to just take care of yourself, clear out the junk that you don't want anymore and get the stuff that you do want? And I'll push through the no's a little bit playfully. I don't want to feel like, a salesperson and just gauge on their interests. Some people, when you offer the fact that it's not uncommon, people do it. You offer the fact that it's a better deal when you bundle things together, and they've already admitted that one day they'll want to do it anyway. So if you're going to do it anyway, can I just spend a few minutes while you're here and I'm here? We have each other's attention and kind of show you what it would look like. So
makes sense. It sounds like basically you're not throwing up the white flag right when they say no from the get-go.
Yeah. Yeah, and something that I find very valuable is something I just kind of sped over, but I say, John, you're here right now. I'm here right now. We have each other's undivided attention. Is it wild for us to just spend a minute just to consider, just to see what it might look like?
Can
And
you say
and
that
most
again? That was really good.
um I say you're here right now, John. You're here right now. I'm here right now. We have each other's undivided attention. Is it totally crazy to consider just taking a minute to see what it might look like? Or, consider looking at it? Just attempt, right? And I think having that playful like mindset where it's like, this isn't serious, but who knows? And then
It's not that deep, Mrs. Jones. It's easy,
right. That's easy.
just for fun. Well, that's good. And I think the words obviously are important, but how you say it also is important too. Would you,
Yeah.
how important is it to you about like reading the customer?
And I think it's super, super important because no pitch is the same because it's constantly being calibrated based on what your customer's telling you through like the nonverbals and verbals. So um, there's obviously a basic framework and a structure, and you need to know your script. But at the end, it's like a person will tell you, I'm totally done, or I'm open to looking at more when you ask a question, just based off kind of how they frame the body. And so you don't have to get customers to give you hard no's and hard yeses. Sometimes you can guide them almost like you're reading their mind. It's based purely off reading how they're interacting with each thing. You can save yourself breath. I know I'm not going to talk about the flatware with this person because when I talked about it, they immediately were like, no. And then they started picking up cookware before I said anything about it. So I think it's important to read your customers, which is why it's so important to memorize your scripts because you need to be able to know those so well that you can actually have the brain energy to read what's going on with your customer.
Yeah, and that's kind of one of the best practices, I think, is basically you have everything dialed in so much with the words you're supposed to say that you're able to be more attentive to what the customer is telling you. And if you can read customers and listen to them better, it just helps the process.
Yeah.
Um, so I had a question for you. Now, obviously, you schedule a lot of service calls from your events and you get really good results from them. Can you give us like an example of what setting up a service call at the booth sounds like? Or I mean, like direct scheduling them and the expectations you give them when you do schedule them for when you go out to their house. That way, they don't just think you're like the AC repair guy and you're just going to dump you with their knives or something. So,
Mhm.
what's kind of all that sound like when you're scheduling them? What are the expectations and anything else you want to throw in?
Well, yeah, so I'll go with how I said it and then kind of some things that I do depending on my availability. But typically, they come up to the booth, hey, I need my knife sharpened. Hey, no problem. We can help you with that. Fantastic. So there's two ways to get it done. One is you can send it to the factory. It takes about 3 weeks. You do pay for shipping, but it's an amazing service. The knives will come back sharp as can be. Um, there's also another service you can sign up here where you can just, or sign up. Somebody will follow up with you in the next month or so, and they'll actually come out and take care of the sharpening for your knives real quick right here on the spot. That way you don't have to send them to the factory. And most people are like, sure, I'll just sign up. And then what I'll do is I like to create scarcity. So, I will say, I actually still have an availability for Monday. Are you available Monday? That way gauging, I can figure out what time they're going to be available, tailor that to that time. And if they are, I book it right there. And then you got a direct book or Tuesday, Wednesday, you just book out to the next week. And then when I book it, I say, so this is a full service sharpening. So how it works is I'll sharpen up all your knives that I can, including the ones with the teeth. Anything that's damaged past the point of being able to do an on-spot repair, I'll make sure I show you how to box those up, how to ship them to the factory, get them replaced for free. I'll also run over the knives that you have, see if there's any that you're not getting enough use out of, or maybe some that you're not using correctly. And I'm going to help you get more value of what you already have. And then at the end, one of the benefits of, the reasons Cutco incentivizes me to do the service calls is they give me access to exclusive pricing on different packages and programs. So if you see something that you like while I'm out there, I'll be able to hook you up with a really great deal. And they're like, okay, cool. So they know, hey, this is a great buying environment time. And then I book the service call. Now, depending on how the show's going at that point, if it's slow, I'm gonna pre-sell the shit out of this. Excuse my language. Pre-sell this person. really hard because I want to make sure it's a customer I want to go up to. So I say, "Hey, by the way, have you ever heard of the upgrade program?" No, what's that? Oh, it's this amazing program where what you can do is actually take the knives that you have, upgrade into one of our main blocks. But instead of having to buy the brand new set, the company sends you the block with the pieces that you're missing, and you get a significant discount being a Cutco owner. And then they go, oh, if they lean in, they engage. Oh, can I just show you something real quick? And I'll pull one knife out of the upgrade and I'll show it to them, and they'll be like, whoa. And then depending on the time that they have, I might try to pitch them the upgrade right there. But if they're like on a road, I just want to leave them on a high where they're like, oh my gosh, I want to look at that. Now, if you show them the upgrade and they go, oh no, I don't need anything more. Oh, no worries. You can mind if I show you one knife? Oh no, I don't. I'm not looking at another knife. I don't need anything more. Oh, no problem at all. Let me take down your info. Take down the info. Try to highlight them with some other packages, cookware, flatware. And I think there's always, almost always, a way to create interest in a client. So I don't want you to disqualify somebody because maybe they put off an initial upfront. But eventually, if they're like, oh, I'm not going to buy anything, I just need my knife sharpened, I'm so good, I just sell them on the factory service and say, part of the reason I'm coming out is because I want to show you new stuff. That's how I make a living. The reason the Cutco gives me incentives with packages and programs. So if you're not looking at interested in buying anything, that doesn't really make sense for me. Here's this amazing service, send them to the factory.
I like how transparent you are with it too. Just being straight up on like, hey, this incentivizes me to do fill in the blank. So whenever I come out, this is how it goes down. And I'm totally guessing here, but I'm guessing it's the same for you as it is for me, that most people are like, sure, that sounds fine. And then
Yeah,
once in a blue moon you get that person that's just very, hard nosed,
right,
stone wall, not budging, very adamant. And it's like, hey, that's cool. I don't want to create an awkward situation here for you. And then just
right,
sell back on the factory service and
right.
stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that. And
No,
so
in fact, they appreciate you. They go, "Oh, thank you so much. Like I appreciate you letting me know that like that's what happened, right?" And so, no problem. You
see you later.
happy to serve. That's right.
Makes sense. Okay, so I have a it sounds like you never come off as you need it though. Like I like the way that you promoted it. It sounds very nonchalant on you promote the factory service and then afterwards, after they're kind of sold on that idea, then you bring up the local service stuff and then create scarcity with your schedule and stuff like that.
Right.
Um, I feel like there's a lot of reps that will sometimes come off as needy, like they're just over anxious, like overly excited to schedule a service call to where it's weird. And
It's
I wanted to make it weird.
it's it's for sure. Like that approach gets me some like I just did that small little home show, and got like 25 service calls or something like that. Because it's really in most of my service calls I notice based on other people, I get like double what people get. And I think it has to do with like I sign up if I go up to a booth and an eager salesperson says, I have an appointment I can give you for free to sharpen your lives. Let me do this. This is going to be great. My schedule, I'm open tomorrow. This is awesome. I have availability. I'm like, whoa, guy. But if somebody's like, it almost is like, there is a service, by the way. You can do this. You know, I'm like, "Mm, okay. Tell me about that, right? It just makes it more, that's how I would process that situation.
I would agree with that too. You just feel like there's something being hidden, like there's an agenda of some sort, and
Right.
versus just being nonchalant about it. Again,
Right.
it's like doing anything else. If you're overly excited about it, it just creates pause, and
Right.
you just don't want that to be a thing. Makes sense.
Right.
So let's say like once you're there, like you schedule a service call, you set the expectation, they're like, sounds cool. You show up to the house. What are like do you have like a strong power intro? Like when you transition from sharpening and doing service, rapport, and all that kind of stuff, and then you switch into selling Cutco, sometimes people will just say, hey, do you have your catalog with you? Do you have your book with you? Kind of thumb through that, whatever. I would assume that you're trying to like kind of keep it controlled a little bit on how this goes. So, do you have a power intro? And if so, like, what are some of the key things you want to set up before you really get into the weeds with them?
Yeah, so I want them to understand that like the value of me being there is huge. The value of this, relationship, this is going to make Cutco so much better. So I sell them on the fact that I'm their Cutco rep for life. This, the benefit of that service regularly. But one of my favorite transitions is just bringing in the guarantee because it's kind of nonchalant. Feels like kind of a perfect usher from sharpening knives, servicing knives. Like obviously you want to sharpen, you want to run over. You want to bring as much value as you can up front, because when people are inundated with value, that's makes it so much easier to transition to them to where you want to go. And so value, value, value. By the way, do you remember how the warranty works? We've already implied it a little bit here, but do you know? No, lifetime, something like that. Oh, perfect. And I switch out, open up the catalog and show them the junk knife page and say, Cutco basically came around because everybody had a drawer like this, right? Five knives, five can openers, five ice cream scopes. Half of them don't work anymore, but they kind of work just enough to keep them just in case, and it's junking up the kitchen, right? Oh, yes. All right. I've got one just right over there, that they'll say stuff like that. Um, exactly. And so that's kind of where Cutco came in because these companies, the way they stay in business is they bank off you buying their products multiple times over your life. Where Cutco believes in something a little different. We believe you should be able to buy something once, feel good about supporting an American company, and never have to buy it again. And so that's why Cutco flipped to the forever guarantee. It's backed by what's called a forever guarantee. Forever means multi-generational. You don't need a receipt. If anything Cutco ever bends, cracks, chips, fades, or dulls, we fix it, replace it, or sharpen it for free forever. So you buy it once, you buy it right, and you'll never have to buy it again. They're like, wow, that's pretty amazing. That's right. And what's cool is Cutco, one of the ways that they incentivize me to come out here is they allow me to do special pricing or promotional pricing on different packages or programs. So I'll show you some of the cool things, keep you up to date. And I won't fight you if you want to cut me a check for like $20,000. Ha 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 ha. And then I go, and so Cutco's not actually just a knife company, we're a kitchen company. But one of the most popular things that Cutco, popular programs Cutco offers on this is our upgrade program. I can then however you take your service call, right?
Yeah, and I think that's the thing is a lot of people have different ways of doing it. There's just certain bullet points I think that are pretty common, and it's all about
Yeah,
where you start and where you finish and how the dynamic of everything is case by case.
yeah.
Um, let's see here. So, what is your beginning and your drop down process during your service call? So when you're actually sitting at the table, you've done your power intro, you kind of set the frame of, hey, this is what Cutco is, kind of like all that stuff you just said, which is good, kind of remind them of all the value. But now that you're actually getting into it, where's the starting point, and then what's the drop down, and what does that kind of all look like?
Yeah, so wish list is the move. I think wish lists are super valuable. I think you can frame it as this it's a service. Like somebody made this idea to me, like if somebody really loved a store like Lululemon or J. Crew or something like that, and they showed up and there was an attendant who was there and was like, knew you by name, loved you, went through the store with you, shopped with you, you found all the things that you liked, but obviously you're not going to get them all. So they kept it on file for you so that whenever you wanted, you could go into the store, pull up the file, look at all the things that you like, and pick something that you like. Pretty rad service, right? You'd you'd be more want to go to that store because you'd feel special treatment. And so when you frame a wish list, you can frame it like that, where what I like to do for all my clients is create what's called a wish list. This does not have to be stuff you're for sure going to get here today. This is just stuff that you see that you like, that you'd use that maybe you'd want down the road. And then I'm going to throw it all in there on the list. That way, you know what you want. Now, I am going to try to tempt you with a deal here. So, this is one of the benefits of the service calls, but at the end of the day, we're going to find something that's perfect for you. Okay, great. Boom. So then I start building the wish list, building the wish list, building. I build it as big as possible. I don't so much go into pieces as I do packages. So I do the upgrade program, sell them on the ultimate is the dream set. There's a whole way that I do that, and I can go to that if you want. I go through the cookware, do the elevator pitch, the flatware, do the elevator pitch, gadgets, accessories. Ask them if they want to look at hunting knives, fishing knives, pocket knives, and then family program. And then I don't do business gifts until after I get the credit card because it feels like a lot. And I'm still working on that. But um, yeah,
Makes sense. And that kind of brings me to my next point here. Like, hey man, so when it comes to situations, we all run across like similar ones. I got a couple here written down that I would be curious to know how you handle them, which is, I mean, these are probably all too common, is the customer just doesn't seem that interested to look at the new stuff anyways. Like you got to that, you set the expectation, you come to the house, you show them new stuff. They're just not vibing. They just don't seem like they're very asking a lot of good questions. They really don't seem like they're that interested in looking at even what's new. I kind of want to start off there is, I mean, we all have crappy appointments. It's just part of the job. Hashtag welcome to sales. But what happens whenever you do show up? Is there anything that you can do when someone doesn't seem that interested to try and, I don't know, try to make something out of nothing?
Yeah, I mean, it just totally depends on the client, but a pretty common solution to people like that is just really trying to have over the top fun, like making them laugh, joking around, preparing the wish list, right? Framing that that's important, making sure they're comfortable throwing things on there that it may, even if they're just a maybe, doesn't mean it's going to be stuff you're going to get today, right? So that you can build that as big as possible because the higher you start, the higher you finish. Um, and I guess I didn't totally answer your question previously to this was how do I drop down? Um, which not to derail there, but yeah, sure did.
It's okay. You have
Uh,
a thought that you want to bring up?
well, just in the drop down, I framed all the things that I go through, and then obviously you sell as big as you can, and then you just drop down a little bit at a time, right? Unless somebody is like if you sometimes you got to read the client, you got to read where they're at, and you're just not going to close them on $10,000, but that's how big they built their wish list. So you can show them, you can laugh together, and then drop down to maybe a range that you feel like is more comfortable. But then I just drop down a little bit at a time. As soon as you know that it's within the reasonable realm of possibility,
Mhm.
and I just joke around and be like, I'm just a farmer. I'm just planting seeds all day long. So like, I'm just trying to show you what's good. And anyway,
Makes sense. I like how you say that you just go down a little bit at a time. I would imagine, correct me if I'm wrong here, that when you say I just take things off the wish list till we get to that range they're, the right range they're comfortable with, you're just slowly starting to maybe sell them off of some certain things on their
mhm,
list. Maybe it's the flatware, maybe it's the pots and pans, that's a big one,
yeah.
and just trying to minimize down to like a select items. Is that about right?
Yeah, and I ask them what is most important, right? So like over the next 10 years, you think about what you want first, second, third, what would it be? And then have them pick.
Hmm.
And then I just kind of drop the last one off, show them. Now, some people, just based off what they've said, like they're making comments about like food stamps or like, things where you're like, this person is not going to spend thousands of dollars, right? And it's not necessarily food stamps, but budget's tight, kids, school, tuition's coming up. Oh my gosh, you see them have a moment of fret about some bill that's coming up.
Hmm.
In which case, then I will quickly drop down to like just an upgrade, and then I try to go up. So if they say yes to upgrade, then I can always go back up. But sometimes I don't just do the slow drop down. Sometimes I'm like, whoa, we're in the wrong stratosphere, and we got to get here, and maybe we can get back up here. But everything that they're implying to me, it would not seem like I'm listening if I was just trying to
There.
slowly.
Yeah. That part 100%. If it's like you go in with a preset plan, but then based on how the situation is going, you have to make adjustments.
Right.
And if someone is consistently bringing up money, 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 money issues or like things like that, you might indirectly maybe even shoot yourself. I'm not the best rep in the world, but it sounds like you might shoot yourself in the foot indirectly by them complaining about all these things they got paid for, and then you offer, this level of package. And then maybe it might be wiser to be able to start at this level versus this level based on what the
Yeah.
customer is saying.
It doesn't mean they won't buy the big package, but I just would end up going the other way. I feel like it either goes from the top down to the bottom up, but everybody has to get there somehow.
Makes sense. So what about another situation where, you show up and they love the idea of everything, but they just really want to buy one knife today? What do we do in that situation? They're like, oh, that sounds great, Michael. Everything's awesome, but because of all these reasons, I'm just going to do the one knife today. How much is
Yeah.
the one? What do we do?
So show them the price. Um, it varies. I try to tempt them with the five, but if they're like strong arm closed off, I'll pick card, write down the five, and then I'll kind of scratch my head a little and I'll do that. You can totally get one, but Cutco has a program that you can actually pay for a knife a month and get a really good deal. Do you mind if I show you that? And then I just try to show them the five with the tray for free, broken up over 5 months where they're only buying one a month. And then if they say no to that, fine, then I make it special and I buy one of the knives for them and try to close them on basically 20% off. And I'll make that deal. If I'm doing that, typically I'm not going to buy the smallest knife. Like, there's a lot of times where like I'm trying to make, if they're like, I only want one knife, I might try to make it make sense. I'll buy a Petite Santoku on these five knives. It'll be 320 CPO, but it actually makes them stop and think, oh, maybe like I do want to do this. And sometimes I just give them a paring knife. It's just reading the customer. And sometimes I probably don't need to give the 5 inch, and I probably could have given a paring knife sometimes. Who knows? But it's just kind of that's when you're reading the customer and then just doing your best.
I think in those situations, it seems like it's totally okay. It's okay to give a good deal, and
Right.
like a true good deal. I mean, bonusing a petite santoku on a 5 piece order, that obviously like for a lot of reps that kind of like brings pause. It's like, wait, why don't you just give the paring knife for free? That's how I believe in it too. My bonus points are very low, but I don't sell $1 million near either. So I think it's one of those things where it's situation. If it's needed, then do it. That's what it sounds like if I'm hearing that right.
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't have too much time left, so I kind of want to make sure to hit this here. I'm going to skip over this one part. I'm going to go straight to some of our last quick questions, which is as far as branding yourself, Michael, one of the things that I'm trying to make sure that our team really does a good job, a better job of learning is how to brand themselves and market themselves better long term to where they're not just selling for today, but they're selling for tomorrow. And so whenever you sell to somebody and they buy Cutco from you and all that process is done, what are some of the key points you're like, I need to tell every person blank so that way my branding is set with them? What does that sound like?
Yeah, so I just make sure that they understand that I'm now their Cutco guy. So I give them a high five. Hey, congratulations, welcome to my Cutco family. It's amazing. I'm so excited to take care of you for years to come. So not only do you get a product that's guaranteed forever, right, that you're never gonna have to buy again, but you also get me. And how that works is not only do you get the benefit of the factory service, but I also sharpen my clients' knives for them locally for them whenever they need. So you don't have to send them to the factory to get them sharpened. You can get it done right here. I also give you access to exclusive discounts throughout the year. So that way, if you want to add to your collection, you want to buy a gift, something like that, you're always going to get the best deal when you reach out to me. And I basically just give you an extra layer of concierge service above and beyond just Cutco. So you break a tip off one of your knives, you just text me, I solve the problem for you rather than having to call Cutco and figure out what to do. Um, and so, yeah, blah, 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 rapport. So excited for you guys. Again, can't wait for the next time that we get to connect. Now, one last thing. This is really important. And then I just throw a joke, this means you can't have another one knife stand with anybody else or something like that, where they just, ah, ha, ha, and I joking, ha, ha. Pleasure to meet you. You guys have a great day. And I have been throwing in working on this because I came from a place where ROR culture was not really strong, where I used to kind of try to defend my clients and be like, reach out to me always. But I have been also slipping into where, hey, if you see Cutco, feel free to go up to them and let them know that Cutco Michael's your guy. And they'll be able to take care of you as well if you want to just see Cutco in person. But it's so ingrained not to do that that it's like sometimes I forget that a lot. But that's the benefit of being on a team like this.
Yeah, and you're not the first person, by the way. We have one or two reps on the team that sometimes will kind of do that, but indirectly, what they're doing is affecting their ROR sales that they receive later on down the road because they're training their customers not to talk to Cutco people. And if you live in an area that has a good ROR program or a good ROR culture, then it's okay to let people know, like, stop at the Cutco booth, mention me as your Cutco person, and like, we'll take care of you. It's not going to work for
Yeah,
everybody, but that's how you
yeah,
get a lot of good repeat business.
yeah.
Um, and the last question here I have for you is what are some easy things to do? Like if someone's watching this and they're like newer or maybe they're middle tier, even if they're upper tier, what are some things that people can do right away to be like, okay, these are the things that I need to do in order to improve my averages or just sell more Cutco? What are some ideas you have?
Listen to Cutco audios every day. Don't like over inundate yourself with like 2 hours one day. Do 20 minutes a day. And man, it's crazy because your brain only retains a few nuggets at a time. And so when you have that practice of just feeding it into your mind every day, you start pulling things out of your butt like the woodworks in a way where you start saying the magic and you're like, man, how did I say that? But it's just because you're filling your mind with the best ways to frame these things. Um, and then I think too, just maximizing every opportunity. We have a 2 day event. We think that 2 day event is the opportunity, but it's really there's so much to it because you're already gearing yourself up. So if you have clients in the area, service leads in the area, you can always call if you're traveling for it. You can book a service call or some service calls before, work the show, direct schedule them after. Make sure that you're using all that arc of momentum to turn what could be a 4 or 5K event into sometimes 15K event because the way that you worked it. So those would be my big recommendations.
Good. I think it's all valid. And I know that was kind of a lot, kind of thrown in a short period of time, Michael. But I do want to let you know that I really appreciate your time, going through all this. And I think a lot of this is going to be very relatable to a lot of people on the team from the top down. And I think it just comes down again to like the fundamentals of selling Cutco. Be in front of customers, work on your scripts, as in like your skill set. And as long as you have good averages and you see a lot of people, you're going to sell Cutco, and it's inevitable not to. And so
Right.
I know your goal this year is sell, I believe, about 350,000. Is that right? Which would be your best year
That's
ever.
right.
And
That's right.
I know you got some big goals being engaged now and like trying to solidify the future and everything. So welcome to the big boy world, my guy. You got your big boy pants on. It's gonna be amazing.
That's right. That's right. So excited.
Yeah. Well, Michael, I appreciate your time here today. We'll go ahead and call it there. All right.
Excellent, man.